I'm Jeb Butler, and this is Tom Giannotti. We're lawyers with the Butler Kahn law firm, and I'll talk with you today about a motorcycle accident settlement that our firm recently obtained on behalf of our client. The collision happened in sort of northeast of Atlanta in Gwinnett County, Georgia, at the intersection of Rockbridge Road and Old Tucker Road. And if we want to look at that, this happened the way that, frankly, a lot of motorcycle accidents do happen. There's someone driving a car who just doesn't see the motorcycle. They're not drunk, they're not trying to hit anybody, they're not a crazy person. They just look and for whatever reason have four wheels on the brain and they don't see the two-wheel vehicle. So what happened here is that our client, Michael, is heading south on Rockbridge Road, and the at-fault driver is heading north, and then is making this, well, excuse that, let's see here. There we go. Is making this left turn. And no, she doesn't, we often see in motorcycle collisions that the car will turn in front of them. That's not what happened here. She just turned slap into the motorcycle and crashed right into it. The police report that we obtained about the collision reflects that. You can see here the officer's diagram shows exactly that. We have the car just turning directly into the motorcycle. And the injuries were pretty serious.
Yeah, so as Jeb said, the driver basically just T-boned our client on the motorcycle. So as you might imagine, being on a motorcycle, there's not as much protection there. And his left leg was crushed, and unfortunately it basically destroyed his leg. All the bone and tissue and vital organs there that carry blood through the leg essentially just made it so his leg had to be amputated. And
I forgot to show these pictures when I was talking, Tom, but so I think what happened is that the car strikes the motorcycle and hits it right here, which is of course where our client's leg is. Do I have that right?
that's right.
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, so being that our client's leg was basically destroyed, his leg had to be amputated below the knee. And these are life-threatening injuries. There's a lot of blood loss, as you might imagine. He spent multiple days in the ICU, but doctors were able to save at least his upper leg, and I think he's thankful to be alive, frankly. So he has had to do a lot of rehabilitation, of course, learn to walk with a prosthetic limb, and extensive therapy, just having to make a lot of changes in the way that he has to live his life now.
And then I think the at-fault driver tried on the scene to blame Michael. Is that?
Yeah, so a couple of interesting statements that the driver made on the scene. One was that our client didn't have his headlight on. And as you can see here, the headlight was damaged in the accident, so the officers weren't able to kind of forensically just go look and see. And it's actually a newer motorcycle, so the type of bulb on this doesn't produce what some folks call hot shock. In other words, when there's an incandescent traditional style bulb, there are certain things that you can look for in the filament, damage to the filament, that can indicate that the light was on at the time. Can't do that with the newer LED style bulbs. So without the actual headlight itself, officers weren't able to determine, but our client maintains, and incredibly so, that these are automatic lights. So
Yeah,
as soon as you turn the bike on, the lights are on.
You couldn't run with them off if you wanted to.
So, and then the officer did see there's other lights on the bottom of the bike. You can't see there, but the officer noted that there were other external lights on the bike. So I think the officer didn't put much stock in that. The driver also tried to say our client was speeding, and all indications were that he was going at or below the speed limit of 45 miles per hour at the time. So she ended up getting a citation for failure to yield, turning left, and who was at fault for this really was pretty clear.
Yeah. One part of a personal injury case that a lot of folks don't think about is what we call subrogation, and that is to say that when someone receives medical treatment, particularly extensive medical treatment like Michael needed here, whoever pays for that ends up coming back and trying to get their money out of the client's settlement, usually at a higher rate than they otherwise would have charged if it didn't involve a car wreck. And if that sounds crazy, I share your skepticism, but it's what happens. So if I'm in a car crash, or say something else happens, I have just an illness or something, and I need medical attention. Well, my health insurance would cover that, and if the sticker price of whatever procedure I got was like $100, then what the insurance company would actually pay, would pay the medical provider would be like $60 or $50 or $40. It's a negotiated lower rate, and that's what normally gets paid. But if you're in an automotive collision, then a lot of times what happens is that the medical provider will say, no, we don't want the medical insurance. Instead, we want to be paid out of the settlement, because then for that $100 procedure that they normally get $40 to $60 on, they're going to try to charge all 100. And they'll tell the hurt person to say, don't worry, we'll just make the other guy pay for this. But what they don't tell someone like Michael is what they're going to try to do is take their money out of the money that Michael ought to receive from his personal injury case. So it's coming eventually right out of Michael's pocket. So this is a problem we call subrogation, and we do quite a lot to try to fight it because it puts more money in our clients' pockets. And I think that's what we did here.
Yeah. And I mean, when you've got extensive injuries like this, those medical bills get very high, very significant, and so many times where auto insurance is the only viable source of recovery, like in this case, there's only so much money to go around, only so much insurance coverage. And that's another thing. I think medical providers maybe tend to mislead injured people into thinking, insurance will cover it, it's fine, he's got insurance.
Mm-hmm. They don't tell you there's only so much.
Right, it's like the same pot that he's available for him to be compensated for his pain and suffering, and also pay all his medical bills. So that's what happened here. Our client had health insurance that he paid for, and the health insurance company not only didn't want to pay for the treatment, but the hospital didn't want to take the health insurance money. So we had to go through multiple rounds of appeals through the health insurance company before they would actually do what they're supposed to do and actually cover what they're supposed to cover. So it was quite the battle, but it was ultimately they did end up covering and putting more money ultimately in Mr. Giddy's pocket, or Michael's pocket. But again, that kind of goes to insurance. I think we'll talk about that in a minute. But the medical providers, unfortunately, were the other part of the problem in terms of not the doctors that did the treatment, but the folks in the front office or the business side of things.
Yeah, the billing department,
right?
Which the doctors have nothing to do with. They don't even know what happens.
Yeah, so sending him to collections while his health insurance refused to cover what they're supposed to cover. So we were able, thankfully, to assist in that regard as well.
Yeah. Another part of our job that sometimes people don't think about is, when you have a collision like here where the at-fault driver doesn't have appreciable assets. I mean, Michael wasn't hit by like a rich person with a mansion that we could take and sell and give him money. So you're dealing with a limited pot of insurance, as Tom mentioned a second ago. Some of the things that we do are we'll work to maximize that pot, and there sometimes are pretty creative ways that we can do that. I think here Tom found a couple different $100,000 liability policies, sort of more than we initially thought.
Yeah, so initially there was, as is often the case with auto accident cases, a insurance declaration page, or just a paper that says this is how much insurance we have through State Farm or Allstate, etc. And it says we have $100,000 of insurance. But what they don't tell you is that if you really get into the nitty-gritty in the policy language, in this case, there are multiple what we call resident relatives that can provide additional coverage. So in this particular case, the driver was a teenager that lived with parents still, but her parents lived separately, and you had one parent with one policy and another parent with the other policy, both with the same insurance company, but instead of having $100,000 policy, it actually turned out that there was coverage independently through both parents, so there was actually $200,000 of insurance coverage.
Another, we deal with lots of different types of insurance coverage, but another one that's common is UM, or underinsured motorists, or underinsured motorists, depending on how you want to call it. We usually just say UM. UM is optional. So in Georgia, if you're going to drive, you have to have liability insurance. That's liability. That's insurance to help whoever it is that you might crash into. But in terms of insurance that helps you, that's UM. And you don't have to buy that. But the insurance company has to offer it to you. So when we first checked in on Michael, the insurance company said, oh no, he doesn't have any UM. He said, okay, well show us then the place where he signed and said, I don't want it. And they couldn't show that to us. So when that happens, when the insurer cannot produce or give to us a written rejection signed by our client saying, I don't want this coverage, then they got to provide it. And that's exactly what happened here. They first said, no, there's no UM. And when we pressed and said, where's your written rejection? Well, then suddenly there was another $25,000 that our client could collect. So we ended up piling together several different insurance policies for a total recovery of $225,000. We wish our client would hit by a rich person. We probably could have done even better than that, but we ended up doing well with a happy client who thankfully wanted to write about us, so left us a nice review talking about being pleased with the service that he received. So that's what we want at the end of every case. A happy client, we got one here, so that's a win.